Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, August 30th. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. The heat is on, and if you think today was hot, wait until tomorrow and the days after. Forecasters say we're in for an extended heat wave, and like the temperature, that is raising concerns over how to keep the more vulnerable in our communities cool. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado with a look at how some are doing just that.
Start hydrating, put on that sunscreen, and create a plan to stay cool. Because starting today, from the coast to the deserts of San Diego County, a heat wave will settle in until Labor Day. 3-year-old Liam Anderson from Ocean Beach has the right idea.
I'm gonna put Toad right there and jump up in the water and Toad. It's fun.
He and other smart kids took their parents to Waterfront Park in San Diego. They were having a blast splashing in the water features. Liam's dad, John, says while they do live on the coast, the humidity makes it feel hotter. And during this heat wave, they have to get out of the house.
We don't have air conditioning, so any way to stay cool, we take them to the beach all the time and down here, of course.
Now, how hard is it going to be to bring them home?
Very hard. I've been trying for a half hour now.
Back in Ocean Beach, we found Edward King, a mail carrier hard at work, who kept walking, sorting, and delivering mail while telling us 'tis the season.
September and October are probably the hottest months I can remember.
The National Weather Service has issued an excessive heat warning. King says people who deliver mail and packages have suffered debilitating heat strokes on the job. But everyone should avoid strenuous activity during peak heat hours.
Heat stroke can hit you without even knowing it, and the problem is it stays with you. Just drink a lot of water. Every 15 minutes, always drinking water.
On the beach, we found Colton Story getting his fitness on. He lives in Coronado, where he usually doesn't need AC. He says he's going to be spending most of the heat wave outdoors.
It's hot, it's humid. I feel bad for the dogs, the animals stuck inside all day. But yeah, I just try to get out and get some air and catch the breeze.
The humidity is expected to be high, making the heat wave even more dangerous. But Story did try to give us a little perspective.
I was digging some trenches in like 110, so running some electrical stuff. And so 90 doesn't sound that bad, but I know we do have the humidity factor, so it's probably going to feel a little bit hotter. Up there is that really dry heat.
San Diegan Patrick Walsh comes through with some words of wisdom that only an avid surfer could give.
Chill out at the beach, especially since it's hot. Don't notice it here.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
It appears we may only get hotter before finally seeing a cool down. We'll have the details in our complete forecast coming up a little later on. People who've been living in tents in a Chula Vista park are making their case to stay put a day before the park is supposed to close down. As KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer tells us, they've gone to federal court to try to keep the city from evicting them because they say they have no place to go.
The unsheltered community is just as much a part of Chula Vista as those residents that are inside.
Homelessness advocates gathered outside of Chula Vista City Hall to announce a preliminary injunction request filed by over a dozen people living in tents at Harborside Park. Mandy Leon helped them file the paperwork.
They're filing Martin versus Boise that they have been offered no reasonable shelter, and per that they cannot be evicted from this park because Chula Vista has 0 shelter beds. There's no shelter beds, and even if they send them to other areas, there are also no shelter beds.
The Chula Vista City Council voted unanimously last week to temporarily close Harborside Park while the city looks for ways to help unsheltered individuals who have been using the park as a tent city. Move-out day is this Tuesday. Mama Heather has been homeless for over 25 years and lived in a tent at the park for the last 5 months. She packed all her belongings.
Moving day tomorrow means heartache for everybody. A lot of people have a lot of ties with each other. They're trying to be together. I know a lot of the guys here, a lot of the people here have made a lot of friends. And then they have to move. They don't know where they're going to go.
Chula Vista Council member and mayoral candidate John McCann led the push to close the park. He says the city of Chula Vista has reserved beds for individuals at the park with nonprofit agencies throughout the county.
The current conditions at the park is totally unacceptable. We cannot allow open drug use and criminal behavior in a public space. Harborside Park must be open for everyone, especially our children and our families of a Harborside community.
Community Through Hope Executive Director Sebastian Martinez disagrees with McCann about what the city is providing for safe shelter options. He says concerns from parents in the community are valid, but these folks will likely end up in similar scenarios in parks or on the streets.
I mean, the truth is these folks are going to go out into the very neighborhoods that these parents are trying to protect or complaining about. I mean, that's the other reason that I'm not for the displacement, because there is nowhere for them to go. So they're either going to go to different parks across the city, they're going to go into residential neighborhoods, or they're going to go into places that no people should be forced to go.
Martinez says some of those other places include sewers and riverbeds. If the temporary injunction filing doesn't work, Harborside Park will be temporarily closed for 90 days, with an option for the city manager to extend the closure longer. It'll cost the city $350,000 for temporary fencing and security. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
It may not speed up the backlog in the processing of rape kits in San Diego, but it will allow victims to know where their case stands. San Diego police now have a new online portal to provide better transparency. Those with a kit pending can simply enter their ID number and find out how close it is to being processed by lab workers.
The victim is always concerned about where is my kit? Is it being handled properly? Is it being tested?
And there's so many layers and so many steps along the way. So this is really one extra way that we can care for survivors.
The kit tracking portal can be found at the San Diego Police Department's website. A new law requires all sexual assault kits to be processed within 120 days. San Diego State's athletic director has confirmed the department hired a rape survivor and victim's advocate to speak to the football team last fall, shortly after a 17-year-old girl reported being raped by some players. KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen has a look at the sexual violence training that all SDSU athletes go through.
I can only do so much. I'm one person.
Brenda Tracy has been giving talks about her experience as a rape survivor. She was gang raped by several football players at Oregon State University in 1998. She sees a lot of similarities between her case and the allegations at San Diego State.
Looking back on it, the more I think about it, and as details come out, and the more I think about the similarities of the story, I don't get it, because I speak very specifically about the people who do nothing.
According to the civil complaint filed in San Diego Superior Court, the then 17-year-old teenager, identified only as Jane Doe, was taken into the back room of this house and repeatedly assaulted by 3 men, identified in the lawsuit as Matt Ariza, Xavier Leonard, and Nalinpa'a Iwaliko. None have been charged with a crime. The district attorney is still reviewing the case. SDSU Athletic Director John Wicker said Tracy was brought in as part of an enhanced training athletes get.
So I mentioned earlier, we've got all of the programming around prevention of sexual assault, upstander training, party etiquette. We also do leadership training. We do financial planning, all of those types of things.
All students athlete at San Diego State go through a sexual violence training during the fall semester. The training is provided by the Center for Community Solutions, San Diego's only rape crisis center. Verna Griffin-Taper is the organization's chief executive officer.
We have curriculum that we go through, and it's what is consent, some role playing, some discussions, and breaking out in smaller groups. So hopefully the athletes have the opportunity to really take a deep dive, really self-reflect, look at past situations.
She says the training includes breaking down the power dynamics and bystander intervention so that when things go wrong, athletes have the necessary tools to speak up.
If you can't intervene safely, how to go access help and not put yourself at risk. And the other part is, if you learn about something later where somebody's been harmed or needs help, then what do you do?
The training with the Center for Community Solutions was brought to SDSU by baseball coach Mark Martinez about 5 years ago. He was first exposed to the training when CCS did a session with his son's Little League team.
It was eye-opening for obviously the parents, and then it was very eye-opening for our young guys. They're not exposed to that stuff at that age. And so that's when I thought, well, we need to do something. We need to find a way to start educating our guys that are currently on campus about domestic violence and date rape and those kinds of things.
So we went in and talked with him and said, we won't train the team unless we can train you. And he said, absolutely, we'll do that.
Martinez says he noticed a difference in his players after the training. He says they are more compassionate.
And it's not just about relationships, outside of the baseball stadium. It's also within the clubhouse and understanding, how to communicate to people the right way.
Still, despite the training, 3 former San Diego State football players stand accused of raping a teenage girl. Wicker got emotional when asked about that at the news conference on Monday.
Again, one of our pillars is to create great human beings. And it's hard when the training you provide may not have been enough.
Tracy says all she can do is tell them how her sexual assault affected her.
But then they also have to live with the consequences sometimes of those decisions as well.
Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
First-year students at Cal State San Marcos are feeling the jitters as classes kick off this week, but some of them get to wind down in a brand-new housing facility. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne gives us a look inside.
It feels really state-of-the-art. Like nothing's broken. Like everything works. You know? AC. Yeah, AC. Really the AC is nice, dude. Yeah.
These first-year Cal State San Marcos students gave us a peek at their new dorm-style housing where they will be living for the next semester. It's part of the brand-new 332-bed housing complex for Cal State San Marcos students inside the North City project across Barham Drive from campus. It's called North Commons, and it's the second housing facility to be built by the North City developer, Seabreeze Properties.
It's really, really exciting to see all the students moved in. We're at 100% occupancy here at this building and at the Quad and at Urban University Village Apartments across the street. So just to get that vibe and that excitement back here on campus and at the North City development, we're just so grateful that we've been able to develop what we have so far.
Darren Levitt with Seabreeze Properties says North Commons is just a fraction of the full North City project that is in the works.
Roughly a 200-acre specific plan in the city of San Marcos that'll have a mix of different uses from student units to market rate housing, single-family housing, a lot of great retail we have on North City Drive here, and a lot of office space that will be coming in the near future.
Ali Serrano, the interim director of residential education with Cal State San Marcos, says the new housing facilities are helping the campus keep up with the demand of new students.
CSUSM is no longer, just kind of a commuter campus. This is a place that students are excited to be at and a place that we really want to make sure that this is the best years of their life.
She says having more housing near campus has helped more students choose Cal State San Marcos.
The students I'm talking to, they have such amazing stories, places they're coming from, a huge international population, students from out of state, really all over the country and the world.
Cal State San Marcos is one of the youngest CSUs in the state, and Serrano says it holds even more potential as it gets developed.
Just the beginning of what is going to be an incredible residential experience for students and really their home on campus. We want this to be an amazing foundation for them to be successful as CSUSM Cougars.
Next year, the university will break ground on a new affordable housing and dining facility on campus for low-income students. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
San Diego Unified District leaders are calling on voters to approve a $3.2 billion bond. They say it would help keep kids safe. The district's Board of Trustees voted to put Measure U on the upcoming November ballot. It's part of an effort to modernize facilities, and it specifically calls for improvements to protect against school shootings. $200 million would be used to pay for new cameras, door locks, controlled entry points, fencing, upgraded security systems, and more.
This is one issue that we wish we didn't have to deal with, but we also can't just close our eyes and not be aware of what's been happening around the country.
Measure U needs 55% of the vote to pass. It would be the fifth bond that the district has asked voters to pass since 1998. Homeowners in San Diego would keep paying $60 for every $100,000 of the assessed value of their homes. Every child is guaranteed a spot in their local public school, but the same doesn't go for spots in after-school programs. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregesser says this is becoming a big problem as California embarks on a massive expansion of transitional kindergarten classes.
Do it again. Try it again.
On a hot Sunday afternoon, Sarah LaPietra and her husband Vince followed their 4-year-old son Teddy around a playground in Balboa Park.
Tell me a message. I don't know.
This is a relaxing day, but there's a lot of uncertainty in Teddy's future. The LaPietras learned in June that he got a spot in their local school's transitional kindergarten, or TK class. They felt like they'd won the lottery. They could stop paying $2,000 a month for his preschool, and the speech therapy and occupational therapy Teddy receives would be on site at the school. Unfortunately, the lottery ticket turned out to be a dud.
We found out, everybody had signed up for the after-school care months and months ago.
While Teddy had a spot in TK, he didn't get a spot in after-school care. That meant the LaPietras would have to pick him up at 2 p.m. every day and noon on Wednesdays. Impossible, given their work schedules.
Just feel like we've been tearing our hair out for 3 months trying to figure out what to do. It just seems like there's no solution. And so I really do think unless something magic comes along, we're going to have to keep him in preschool.
Parents here and throughout California are in similar predicaments. Starting this school year, California expanded the number of kids eligible for TK with the goal of providing TK to all 4-year-olds by 2025. But the program is missing a crucial piece: after-school care.
We also know that working parents were really looking forward to being able to enroll their children in a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. day.
Nancy Gannon-Hornberger is CEO of Say San Diego, which provides aftercare at many local schools. She says staffing shortages and licensing delays mean Say San Diego is limited in how many students it can serve.
It's frustrating, I know, for parents who were counting on that longer day of care. And we're here to help them navigate to preschool or some other form of care for their TKers.
The San Diego Unified School District has more than doubled the number of TK classes this year, and the wait lists at aftercares have shot up too. Across all programs run by Say San Diego, there are more than 2,000 kids on wait lists, almost twice as many as last year.
It's incredibly frustrating. It's been making us crazy since the idea ever came out.
Kim McDougall runs childcare for the San Diego YMCA. She says after the state announced TK expansion, the YMCA looked at whether they could get licenses to care for younger kids at their after-school program sites.
We would have to do all kinds of facilities renovation. We would have to have child-sized toilets. We would have to have an age-appropriate playground. It would be really close to impossible for us to even do.
Democratic Assembly member Kevin McCarty authored the TK expansion law.
One of the biggest things lacking that's the thing we need to start and make sure we completed was having universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds to show up at kindergarten ready.
One San Diego school district has taken matters into its own hands. Cajon Valley Union in East County is providing free after-school care for all students. Superintendent David Miyashiro says it started during COVID, and he plans to continue it as long as possible.
Pending some type of fiscal cliff in California where we'd have to go into a cutting situation, we're planning to provide this for years to come.
Meanwhile, the La Pietras had heard that Teddy might get into an aftercare class run by the YMCA, but they're still waiting to find out. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
A bill that would expand abortion access for Californians passed the state legislature today and is now headed to Governor Newsom's desk. Senate Bill 1375 was authored by Senate pro tempore Toni Atkins. She, of course, is a San Diego Democrat. If signed into law, it would allow qualified nurse practitioners to perform first trimester abortions without a supervising physician. Atkins also led efforts to put an amendment in the California state constitution protecting the right to abortion and contraception, and that will be on the November ballot. A new analysis says the melting ice sheets of Greenland alone will cause a 10-inch rise to sea levels around the world. KPBS science and technology reporter Thomas Fudge explains what that means for San Diego.
As our oceans and atmosphere get warmer, the ice sheets of Greenland are melting and breaking apart, and all that ice is going in the ocean. A new study in the journal Nature Climate Change says this will cause a sea level rise of at least 10 inches. The study's authors say that sea level rise could total 30 inches.
The amount by which that ice is being added to the ocean is increasing, and we know that from satellite monitoring as well.
Helen Fricker is a geophysicist at UCSD who studies ice sheets such as the ones in Greenland and Antarctica. She didn't participate in the new study, but she says it reaches a conclusion that is commonly accepted.
What we are seeing is actually tracking the high end or the worst case scenario of the IPCC projections.
So what would a worst case scenario mean for San Diego? Fricker says rising sea levels will affect our community, and it'll do so in our lifetimes. She cites, for example, the plans for developing San Diego's low-lying Midway district.
So sports arena, look at that. I mean, honestly, they want to build all this housing on a floodplain, which in 10, 20 years' time, it's going to be underwater. I'm really sorry, but the ice sheets are melting.
Fricker says it's hard to estimate just how much of Greenland's ice sheets will melt in the coming years, but sea levels will rise, and coastal communities like ours will see the consequences. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
It's not just here in San Diego. Brutal heat is bearing down on big cities up and down the West Coast. More than 20 major U.S. cities will be under a heat alert as a prolonged and record-breaking heat dome builds through the holiday weekend. That's on top of the 30 million people already under excessive heat warnings from Central to Southern California. Even coastal California cities like San Francisco that sometimes avoid these heat waves will not escape the heat. Meteorologist Justin Povic has our forecast.
Well, the heat is going to be prolonged and quite intense as we go throughout the upcoming week, and that's going to be the case right into the Labor Day holiday weekend. Continued dry, and in fact, later on this weekend, some spots will be challenging daily record high temperatures. In fact, look at this. Entire viewing area, again, under excessive heat warnings. And we're going to be talking about conditions heating up not only throughout some of the interior valleys, the high desert, into the mountainous terrain, especially below 5,500 feet, but even out toward the coast. You'll really start to see those numbers on the rise later on this week and into the upcoming weekend. Lots and lots of dry air in place. And that'll keep skies mainly clear for tonight. Overnight low temperature dropping down to 70 degrees. All right, let's talk about San Diego County for tonight. Chula Vista down into the upper 60s. Borrego Springs will fall off to 85. Mount Laguna dropping down to 68. And we'll continue to sizzle inland as we go into Wednesday. Not quite as hot at the coast, but still quite warm. San Diego to Oceanside, we're going to be warming up into those mid-80s. You go just inland, though, it makes a big difference. Look at this. We're going to be climbing up into the lower 100s toward Ramona. Borrego Springs topping out at 110. And again, futurecast, not a lot of cloudiness. Again, the marine layer quite shallow as we talk about, again, the temperatures continuing to climb here on Thursday. In fact, by then, little relief at the coast. Some spots, again, going double digits above normal as we edge our way into the upcoming weekend. And look at this. We're going to be talking about highs going as high as 30 to 35 degrees above normal as we look off toward the north. So find ways to stay cool, hydrated with water. Be sure to check on the pets. Look at this. At the coast, we're in the 90s. By Sunday, just inland, we're going up to the century mark by Sunday. And then we talk about the mountains. We're climbing up into the 90s later on this weekend. And the desert's very, very hot into the 1-teens. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
I'm Amna Navaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, residents of Jackson, Mississippi are left without drinking water after a failure at a city treatment plant. It's coming up at 7 right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A penguin at the San Diego Zoo is walking a little easier now, thanks to special orthopedic footwear. The 4-year-old penguin named Lucas has lesions on his feet due to a chronic condition known as bumblefoot. Wildlife care specialists turned to an organization called Therapaw, which created custom shoes made of neoprene and rubber.
Since we've been able to put the shoes on him, he's shown a much more normal gait, walking on flat surfaces. There's no limping, there's no favoring his left side any longer.
And no more bumbling around for Lucas. There he is. African penguins have suffered a massive population decline and are listed as endangered by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. You can find tonight's stories on our website, and that is, of course, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.